Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And we are both speaking the language of bromance. How are you, man?
Doing good, sir. How about yourself?
I'm fantastic. I've been spending the last couple nights poring over. They just released a starter set for the new edition of Dungeons and Dragons, and I managed to get a hold of a set of playtest rules. Now these aren't. I'm not sure if they're gonna have everything that's on these playtest sheets. If it's gonna make it into the actual, if it's gonna make it into the actual player's handbook. Player's handbook is out mid-August, I think, is when they're supposed to release it.
So I've seen a lot of people kind of showing us, what's the starter set they have?
The starter set is basically, okay, way back. I'm gonna take you back. I'm gonna take you back to 19. Oh God, when was this game created? 1969.
Okay.
I think it was 69.
The summer of '69, the summer of love, and the summer of nerds.
Yeah. Well, see, so when Gary Gygax originally developed the game, the game that you and I know is big, 150 page, 200 page, 250 page books. You had the player's guide and the DM's guide and whatever. When the game was originally released, there was no big giant books. It came in a box.
Okay.
It was a box that you went and bought it at a hobby store. You didn't buy it like the bookstore or anything. You went to the hobby store and you bought this box. And inside this box there were 3, I would say, like pamphlet-sized booklets. About like maybe 20 pages each, and
Mm-hmm.
there was one for players, and then there was one for a dungeon master, and I think the third one was called Monsters and Treasure.
Okay. And they're all paper, right? They're all paperback?
It was all paper. They kind of look like Reader's Digest.
Okay.
They were about that big, and so the starter set came with that and little cardboard cutouts of characters, like just basically like a little cardboard piece of cardboard that had like a character drawn on it, and then you would fold it, and then you'd have a little model. It just had like a painting of a character on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would use that as like your little, to place your guy on a map or in a dungeon or whatever. So from there, that developed into, that sold really well, and so then they eventually wanted to create a more in-depth version of that little box set game. And so then you had, the player's handbook and the dungeon master's guide and the books that, the big 250 page books.
Yeah.
So I guess as a way, maybe it's a nostalgia thing. They did it with 3rd edition too. When third edition first came out, the first thing that was released was the starter set with just 3 small digest-sized things, and it came with a little set of dice, and it was basically enough for it was set up so that way people could create characters really quickly. And I think actually the 3rd edition set and this set that they released not too long ago actually comes with like a mini adventure.
Okay. So kind of something just to let you jump in and get started real quick.
Exactly. So the whole thing starts with the little starter set, and then it's gonna go from there to within this between the release of the starter set and the books. I think there's a span of like maybe 6 weeks.
Okay.
So anyway, I got a hold of a set of playtest rules for the for what they're calling it D&D. I think the playtest version they call it D&D Next. I don't know if D&D Next is what they're naming the next edition, but is what everybody's pretty much referring to as 5th edition.
Yeah, I was just going to ask what you've seen, because I think I've seen D&D 5, I've seen 5th edition, I've seen D&D Next.
I think next is what they were calling it when they were doing the play testing. So I've been spending the past couple days poring over this book, and I'm just gonna say right now, like this cast is gonna get extremely nerdy, and there's gonna be, like, if I wore glasses, I would be constantly pushing them up. Like this, it's gonna get thick.
Well, this is I mean, if nobody's ever played D&D, this will be a really good kind of get a feeler for what really happens in it. Because this is kind of how I got everybody in work involved with it. Just kind of mention a few things. You talk about like what you need to do and all the fun you can actually have with it. And like I said, most of the time it's just BSing, but it's kind of interesting because I know in the game or the group that we play with back home, the one that you and I were in. So they came out with 3rd edition, and there were some issues with that, and then they came out with like a 3.5.
3rd edition was released in 2001. Yeah, and I mean there were slight issues with it, but I would say you could have. I mean, I didn't buy a 3.5 book. I had my 3, and I was fine because the changes that they made between 3 and 3.5. To me, didn't merit buying a whole nother book.
Mm-hmm. Was it just enough that, I mean, you could either ignore the rules or whatever, and it didn't really affect anything?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you can ignore it or you can add it in, and it doesn't really change much of anything. At least from my experience with it.
And so then just kind of history of that. So they came out with 3, 5, and then at some point they came out with 4. Which I never read any of that. I just know from what you and everybody else had talked about, like that was just kind of a utter failure.
It was. I think that they were trying. I don't want to speculate, but I'm gonna. It seems like what they did is it seemed like they were trying to appeal to the World of Warcraft crowd and make everything very simple, and almost play it like a card game, or almost like a just a general board game.
Okay, so
and it just seemed really simple and kind of cookie cutter, and it seemed like very dumbed down.
I gotcha.
And so that core audience just tore away from it. I mean, nobody bought it. That's what. And then Pathfinder stepped in and saw the gap in the market, and look what we're all playing now.
Yeah, it's I saw somebody talking about that. They said like D&D is a brand, Pathfinder is a system, and like they basically said like just wait a few years and you'll see which one's still around. But I mean, I really enjoy Pathfinder and Paizo, however you can pronounce it.
I don't know.
I think they put in a lot of good effort in what they have. It's pretty much like 3.5, but it's simplified a little bit in some things. Because in 3.5, I remember so when you're setting up a character, you pick different things, and one of them is like your skill set. And with D&D, I remember there being like 50 or 60 different skill sets.
Right.
And so you're just so spread out on that. But with Pathfinder, I mean, there's like 15 or 20?
Yeah, I mean, there's a simple list of skills, and you just went. You put points in, and you just went.
Because that's always the frustrating thing. It's like, okay, well, we're doing such and such. It's like, who has some off-ball skill to use? And it's like, oh, let me look. Well, will this work? Will this work? Will this work? And with Pathfinder, if you're in that scenario, I mean, it's like, well, there's one that this could really relate to. Use that skill and let's go on.
Right.
Because you just want to roll and get going. You want to say, okay, you're trying to climb's a pretty simple one, but if you have 3 different kinds of climbings, you don't want to have to. Well, is it technically this kind of climbing? Is it this kind of climbing? It's like, who cares? It's just climb. Roll your d20 and see if you fall on your face.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So anyway, so I guess what I'll do is I'll try and explain the basics of how it's going, of how the direction 5th edition is going in, while at the same time going from I'll probably talk about from a standpoint of the difference between that and say like Pathfinder.
Okay.
Just because Pathfinder's what we're familiar with.
And I haven't read any of 5th edition, so I'll probably have a ton of questions.
Right. Okay. So, it seems like
RPG stands for what?
Hey, there is such a thing as a stupid question.
All right, go.
All right. So the way a character's formed, the first thing you do is you roll your ability scores. Now, that's just, you take 3 dice and you roll it, and whatever number you come up with, you write that down. And then you do this over and over until you have a set of numbers. Those numbers determine things like your character's strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, and constitution. I don't think I left anything out. Strength, dex, wisdom, intelligence, con. Yes. So, depending on how high the number is, that number gives you a modifier. So 10 to 12 is a +0, which means that if you roll something and you need to add a modifier to it, you don't add anything. Or 10 11 is 0, 12 to 13 is 1, 4, and so on and so on. So the first very striking difference, I will say with this, is that skills are not something that you put points into.
Okay.
You do not put points. You don't have like a set of points that you put into skills. All skills are determined by your ability. Now, what it kind of means is basically anybody can do any skill, depending on how good they are at the ability that goes along with it. So anybody can climb, and anybody can pick your pocket. Just depends on how good their dexterity is.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have a fighter that's really good at picking pockets if he has a high enough dexterity. You can have a sorcerer who's really good at swimming if he has a high enough strength. So you don't put points into skills, you roll. So say you need to, let's give you an example. Let's say you need to do something like sleight of hand. Then you roll and you add your dexterity modifier. And then if you're proficient in a skill, which is determined by your class, then that gives you a proficiency bonus that you also add. And then that gives you your final result.
Okay, so like let's say for climb, is that strength for climb?
Yeah.
So if you're climbing, if you're proficient in that, you get a plus. You get your plus for your strength modifier, and then whatever you roll.
Right.
So what's the proficient modifier? I guess because that's the only thing it seems like that gets added in then. Because
the proficiency modifier is determined by your class. So if you're a fighter, then you can. If you're a fighter, then I'm kind of jumping, but I think you pick skills that you're proficient in.
Okay.
So if you're, let's see, I gotta scroll down a ways. Okay, so the proficiency bonus is determined by your level.
Okay.
The higher your level, the higher the bonus. So if you're a 10th level fighter, you're going to be better at climbing than a 4th level fighter because your proficiency bonus is higher.
Okay. Yeah, because the way it works before in Pathfinder, you basically get a set number of skills, and you can pretty much put them anywhere you want, and then you add your modifier to it. So the modifier adding is pretty much the same, except now that when you move up, it's just an automatic bump whenever you get bumped up levels instead of you saying, well, I want to put, a max of, 5 in climbing because I want my fighter to be a really good climber. Instead, it's, okay, he's very proficient in climbing, so he's always going to increase on that. Okay.
Right. They all go, yeah. So if your level goes up, then you're better at everything.
Wonder how I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, it makes it a little bit simpler, I think.
It makes it simpler, but I think it kind of... I like being forced to make choices.
Yeah. Well, that's the fun with it, is you're creating a character.
You know, I like being forced to not be good at something so I can be better at something else.
And it's so, and because really when you think about like that time gap when you level up, it's really like a span of time. So I've done these things to increase my skill at something. So if you go from that time range, you're saying, oh, okay, so let's say it's been a year. Because, I mean, whenever I think of these, I always try to think of them in like realistic terms. So it's been a year, I've been doing all this campaigning, and now I'm better at everything. And it's like, well, really what you've been doing is, so for that year, maybe you've been climbing a mountain that whole year. So really you wouldn't have improved any of your other skills except climbing. If you haven't, you know, if you haven't done any rope use, which you'd probably would for climbing, you'd be using a rope, but let's say you weren't. If you hadn't done any rope usage, you're probably going to actually decline in that or stay stagnant. And instead of so that's kind of the Pathfinder ways. You can increase it if you want to. So you could say, well, I've kind of learned this over the time. Or you can put it all into something else you're doing. Whereas in this new 5th edition, it's just you bounce up on everything.
Right. And I guess it kind of does force you to make a choice in the sense that depending on what your class is, you pick what skills you're going to put that proficiency bonus in.
Yeah, but you have to do that at the very beginning. And so, like, you
start... If you're... So, say you're a barbarian, they give you a list of 3, and you pick 1.
Okay, so you don't even get to pick... Do you get to pick a new one at every other level or something, or... Do you...
I'm not entirely sure. If you're a bard, then you choose 3.
So they're really trying to push for people to play bards?
Fucking bards. Most useless fucking thing. It's a guy that's like, I do a lot of things okay. I mean, not great. I do nothing great. I'm a champion of mediocrity. Yep. That's what the bard is.
It's the real life, everyday, normal guy.
Exactly. That's why they always die.
That's funny. So since we're kind of on this campaign, and speaking of bards, I just watched the Gamers, the 3rd one, Hands of Fate.
I haven't seen the 3rd one.
Highly recommend it. You can watch it on YouTube for free. But I liked it so much, I actually went out and bought it. Like, you can buy a free download or whatever. And I bought that and watched it. And Tiffany watched it with me, and she thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, my kids like the first one, and they haven't seen the second one.
Yeah, this 3rd one, it's very much like gamers in the sense of tabletop games, and then like card players like Magic and stuff. Like, it's those two worlds colliding. It's pretty funny.
Oh, that's awesome.
The Shadow.
Okay,
so skills seems a little bit different than what most people would be accustomed to.
Exactly.
I'm gonna go on record and say I don't think I'm a big fan of it.
I mean, it seemed like a simple. I mean, it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like I said. I like being forced to make choices. I don't know. Well, I think that being forced to make choices makes things better.
Well, I think it makes it feel like it's more your character too. So instead of having to, choose at the very beginning when you create it, you're constantly adapting to the scenarios. Because like
I will say that. Like I would say, I think I would preface this whole thing by saying that the characters in and of itself feel very cookie cutter to me.
Really?
Like you can, like there isn't. I mean, there's abilities you can pick and not pick and things like that. But I mean, it seems like if I knew the rules a little bit better, I could make a character in under 10 minutes.
Which, yeah, I mean, I guess that's good and bad. Because, I mean, how many game sessions have you sat in where somebody didn't have a character ready and 3 hours go by and you're like, okay, I'm ready. It's like, well, it's time to get something to eat.
I still got to buy equipment. Hang on.
What can I have? Can I have this? It's like, go ahead and start. I'll be ready by the time you get to us.
Just tie me up somewhere. Just have me tied up somewhere, and then you find me.
What's your...
Just find me in a room.
Oh, shit, I made a Star Wars character. That's always fun. Always, yeah. But it seems like that, I mean, that's just part of it. I mean, that's kind of the fun part of it, because even though you're waiting on somebody to create the character, there's still the bullshitting going on and all the carrying ons that happen.
Right, the things that make the asides that makes the game interesting, just in the sense that it's time that you get to, hang with people that share similar interests. It's the equivalent. It's the equivalent of five guys sitting at a bar.
Yeah, yeah. Except it's not as loud, and there's not any waitresses or anything, and there is drinking, I guess, at times. So you have that. So okay, so the skills have changed. What else have you noticed with it that you on the read through?
The races. You pick a race, and then there's kind of like sub races.
Okay.
So depending on sub races you pick, then that gives you different abilities. So there's like, if you pick an elf, then you have high elves or wood elves. If you pick a halfling, then there's stout halfling. Yeah, stout halflings are Lightfoot. Humans, of course, are they're humans. But each race is given a trait, or racial traits, depending on what race you pick. They all have their own abilities and whatever. So, the race thing's pretty, that's fine. I mean, it's not like it's not really a huge difference from Pathfinder. They just add these sub races, and that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, with classes. So you have your basic classes. You have a barbarian, bard, cleric, fighter, druid, ranger, sorcerer, wizard.
Yeah, and so for the non-gaming people who are listening on this, classes are basically, it's like what you're...
Which, why would you at this point? Like, at this point, I'm thinking, like, if you're just like, what? What's a bard? Why do they hate them so much?
Hey, bear! I'm not getting laid now from the bear.
Yeah. If I had a bear, I would train it to eat bards.
Why wouldn't you? I think that's what you're supposed to do.
Hey, bard! Bard!
Yes. Gone. So classes are basically, it's like what the person's proficiency is. Like, would you kind of call it? It's like their job. It's their trained skills.
It's their role. Role in the world.
Like a fighter, you would compare to like what kind of famous character? Conan. Well, Conan would be a barbarian, obviously, because of Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah. Who would fighter? I would say a good example would be Gimli.
Okay.
Gimli from Lord of the Rings. Gimli's a fighter. Aragorn, obviously a ranger. In fact, actually, when the original Dungeons and Dragons came out, this was like in the heat of when Lord of the Rings was first released, and the books were huge. I mean, the books were popular. People were walking around with buttons that said Frodo lives on it and shit like that, People were spray painting it like graffiti.
And like you said, and I don't know if I caught what you said, but that's actually what kind of gave the guy who created Dungeons and Dragons the idea to actually create the game, right? Like, that's where he basically developed it all from.
He pulled a lot of things from the books and put in the game. Obviously, like the Rangers and the Halflings, dwarves, elves, or the concept of elves not, helping Santa make toys. They're actually like tall and they do things that don't involve making toys. So so to put it in, so to give people a reference, okay, so Conan, barbarian, okay, a fighter like Gimli. Aragorn would be a ranger. Let's see, a cleric. A cleric is more of a they're a priest. So they're somebody that can cast. They're a spellcaster, but they're more oriented towards being with the divine. Whereas wizards, are spellcasters that deal with arcane. I guess is the best way I can put it.
Yeah, like they don't. They cast spells, but it's more of they're praying to something to make the thing happen.
Right. The druid is kind of like a cleric, but they're more nature oriented.
Like a hippie.
Yeah, exactly like a hippie.
A hippie on acid. So basically, that's where they got that from, right?
Right. That's precisely where they got it from. You say what you want about druids, but they used to. They would have rituals out in the middle of fields where there'd be naked women all over the place. They would do rituals stark nude. So maybe we shouldn't be knocking the druids so much.
Well, like I said, hippies on acid. Works good in theory.
Hey. They, at the end of the day, like, if you're standing at a field with a bunch of naked women, do you really care about their political preference?
Probably not.
I love trees. I don't care. You have boobs.
All right, so classes, what was the big difference on there?
Let's see. Okay. I guess the best... each class you pick has kind of sub-classes that belong to it. To give you an example, we'll take the... If I can skip past this. There we go. We'll take the fighter. Okay, so the fighter has what they call martial paths. And so there's, I think, 3 different paths. There's the path of the weapon master, the warrior, or the... Oh, no, maybe it's just the 2.
I already don't like the sound of this.
So each path, so depending on what path you pick, you get abilities that are different depending on what path you pick. So obviously, if you're the path of the weapon master, you're going to have one weapon that you're really, really, really good at.
Uh-huh.
Whereas the path of the warrior, you're going to be a bit more rounded. A bit more not so specialized, but good at good at most things.
Yeah. So
each class kind of has the same thing. I would call them talent trees.
Yeah, that's what it kind of sounded like. That was like one of my big things I hated about Skyrim.
Was the perk points that you put into...
Yeah, cause just like that, it's like, okay, you start out and you say, okay, well, I'm gonna go down the warrior path. It's like I guess that's what I want to do. It sounds good. As you get through the campaign, it may not benefit you to be a warrior. Maybe you need to do something else. Like the other, well, if it's only one of 2, it's not as big a deal, but it just feels like it's very limiting. Because if you're going along on a quest or a campaign, you may figure out 3 levels in that you need to kind of steer this character towards a different direction. And if you're already down the wrong, path, then you're stuck with it.
Yeah. That's very true.
So you get... yeah, go ahead. So you get a path you have to go down.
Yeah, so you have and the other abilities are pretty, are pretty similar to Pathfinder, where you get like the paladin, which is like a holy warrior. The paladin, gets his lay on hands, and they can cast spells, and
goody two shoes.
they have what they call oaths, and different oaths grant you different abilities. So each class has its own little kind of things that break off.
Okay. So, like, does the paladin have, like, the oath that I will not lay hands on myself? It's masturbating.
Maybe there's maybe maybe there's an oath of chastity, vengeance.
That's like, I think if you do that, it's like your character needs to be the greatest ever, because it's not only the player in real life is not getting laid. Now my character's not getting laid.
Right. This is how you shoot yourself in the foot of your mind.
I just see him like looking at his paper, being like, "I can't get any pussy, neither can you."
Oh, let's hold each other and cry.
It's like, oh god, Tim's over there crying again. Did he create another paladin that can't have sex? Yeah. Fuck,
Yeah.
I just wish he'd play a bard again.
At least the bard got laid.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Am I getting drunk?
So you get like different perks. So you said paladins have oaths, which makes sense.
Yeah, the ranger has they actually just call them paths. You have the path of the Colossus Slayer, or the path of the Horde Breaker.
So this really sounds like, so I've always wanted to do this, but I haven't done it. I wanted to play a half orc who I can't remember what the name of it. You basically worship a specific god, and you have to cut out your own eye because it was a one-eyed god. It was like Orkosh or Groomish. Yes, it really sounds like it's kind of that stuff, but it's just more limiting.
Yeah. It's pretty much. Like I said, like, if I knew this better, I could make a character in about 10 minutes. They one basic thing that they do is they give you what the DM gives you what they call advantage or disadvantage in a given situation.
Okay.
So let's say that you are standing up on a rock and you're firing a bow down at some orcs. Okay, so I as the DM, I would say you have an advantage in this. You have advantage in this situation. So when you would roll to attack, you don't roll 1d20, you roll 2.
Okay.
And then you take the better result.
Okay, I can get on board with that.
Okay. So instead of like throwing in like modifiers and everything, they give you, okay, you have advantage. So you roll 2, you take better. Now, let's say that you're down on the ground and somebody's firing down on you, and you want to, or someone shoots a fireball down at you, and you want to dodge it. And I'm saying, well, I would say that you probably have a disadvantage in this situation, or you have disadvantage. So now you roll 2 d20s, and you take the worst result.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. And so then if you consider like a spot that's neutral, you both just roll 1?
Right.
Okay.
If things are normal, then I roll 1, you roll 1, whatever. But if there's advantage, then you roll 2 and take the better. If you have disadvantage, you roll 2 and take the worse.
I almost want to adopt that just in the Pathfinder rules, because that's actually pretty cool. I wonder if that could get overused too much, because that's just another thing as a DM you'd have to worry about making sure it was kind of even, or because you'd hate for your PCs to always be like, we're always at a disadvantage. Why are we always at a disadvantage?
Right. I mean, yeah, there's a high potential for abuse, one way or the other. I think it just depends. I think it depends when it comes to things like that. I think it depends on the group and whether they have a rapport and trust the person that's running the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the person running the game has, it's not just, I'm gonna set this adventure in front of me and just kind of, and I'll go through it. I mean, you're the rules arbiter. You're the end all be all. The buck stops with you in the game.
Yeah.
If things go shitty, it's your fault. If things go really good, it's also your fault.
Yeah.
So I mean, like when we first started talking about the Star Wars campaign, I mean, everybody loved that game, and they were like, oh, that game was awesome or whatever, and they, I'm associated with that campaign. Now, if somebody ran a shitty campaign, I can think of one where there was this guy I knew that ran it was a terrible campaign. I think he pulled it from a video game, and it was so transparent, and it was bad, and so and it stuck. When I think it was like, God, that was a fucking terrible game. That motherfucker ran that game. God, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal.
And so then you're like, well, I'm just not going to go to game days anymore. I'm going to talk him into doing a podcast, so I never have to play with him again. Is that what happened?
Hey, Bear!
Shawn's a bard, Bear! Eat him! Yeah, it's... you have to have a lot of trust with your group to, like, if you're running a bad campaign, and even as a DM, GM, whatever you want to call it, you have to kind of have that. It's like, okay, this game, whatever we've done here sucks. Either I'm not doing something right, or just this thing here isn't right. Let's just scrap it and try something new. And that's what I always worry about whenever I'm running a campaign, because like as it's going, everything's going so fast that like you're trying to make sure everything's keeping up and all the rules are getting followed, and like the scenario makes sense and the story makes sense. At the end of the day, I'm kind of like, well, was it okay? Did you guys have fun? And I always have that worry that people are like, yeah, it was fun, it was great, but really it wasn't.
Right.
Because of the two, playing and DMing, if I had the copious amount of time to create my own campaign like fully and just stay caught up on that, I would say running campaigns is probably my most I have more fun doing that.
I can go either way. I mean, I'm a switch hitter in that regard. I mean, I like running, and it's fun, and I can find fun in it, and coming up with, especially you come up with something on your own, and I mean, I enjoy it, but I mean, I would say I probably enjoy running more than playing, but it's nice to play. It's nice to have, especially like I kind of like to have one character and just stick with it and just ride it all the way to ride it all the way out.
Yeah.
And build the story of that character from nothing to everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's that I like.
Kind of get that emotional attachment to that character that you spent. Because I mean, when you're playing D&D, I mean, like us, we play for basically a full day once a month. I mean, you've put a lot of time and effort in those characters. I mean, you hear people talk about their, WoW characters and how much like physical time they put into it. But I mean, to get to level 20 for a D&D character, I mean, that takes. I mean, how long do you think that takes? 2 years, maybe, depending.
It depends. It depends on how often you play. I mean, I have one character. I mean, that my 3rd edition character. I think we've played for. No, I started playing with that character in like 2002, and he's up to level 27 now.
Because that's the one that we did the epic level characters for, right? Because there's some of the other guys had some.
Right.
And so I jumped in like when you guys were only at epic level, so I basically just created an epic level, but I had no attachment to that character. The only thing I remember him being is like a full-on sorcerer, and every fucking thing that we fought had magic resistance.
Oh yeah, that was a bad thing to pick.
Yeah, I hated that. It's like, oh wow, he's gonna be so powerful, and he's gonna actually have a little bit of hit points, and all right, I cast yada yada. Magic resistance. Oh. Well, go get him, guys. Have fun.
Okay. So so you're going with skills again and proficiency. so you pick one skill or two skills depending on what class you go. You pick a skill. One thing you also have to pick or have to create when you make a character is you have to create a background.
Okay.
The reason you have to create a background is because when you create a background, it comes with a trait that you get, and it also gives you proficiencies in more skills.
Okay.
So, as an example, they have an artisan. So, when you choose the background, you choose your profession, and your trait is, let's say you're a blacksmith. That's your background, is you're a blacksmith. So as a trait, you're a member of a guild that is connected to your chosen craft, which can help or hinder depending on, let's say you go to a city that has like a guild hall. Well, you have a place to stay. So that's good. That's not bad.
Okay, that kind of makes sense.
And then you're proficient in more skills. You're also given some equipment if you're an artisan.
Yeah, so that doesn't seem too bad. I mean, it kind of gives you the option. If you don't do it, you basically just lose the proficiency points.
If you don't pick a background, well, you lose the trait. You lose. No, it looks like it's the background something you are pretty well forced to pick.
Okay. That's not too bad. I mean, that's kind of probably one of the downfalls of all the other systems is that you really don't see a lot of people develop those backgrounds. It's just more.
Yeah, I mean they I haven't really played a lot of games. Well, I had a few, but I haven't played a lot of games where somebody has created like this huge backstory for their characters and stuff.
Yeah, it seems like, and you'd hate to put in. It's one of those things you hate to put in all that effort, and maybe the campaign doesn't run through as well, or people can't make it. So you're just sitting there with this character that you've put all this time into, and you're only at 3rd level or whatever.
Or you die.
Or you die. Yeah. What's the earliest you've killed somebody in a campaign?
Oh, I've killed people first level.
Okay.
And, I've killed people, 20 minutes. They usually end up being the spellcasters because they have like 2 hit points.
Yeah, that's why even though it's only 2.
Oh, the bartender flicked your nose and dead.
Oh, wow, you're dead. I don't know if this is like a big known house rule to a lot of people, but I'll always like how whenever we're rolling hit dice, it's always half or better. So like in the case that you're a sorcerer, you don't roll a 1 and you have 1 hit point.
Well, with first level, usually the house rule I like is first level is max.
Yeah, that's right.
The half or better, I mean, some people do it, some people don't. But most places I've seen, they do max at first level.
Okay.
So, let's see. A sage, your trait is you're a researcher. So it's like bardic knowledge, and then you have skills, you get languages, you have equipment. As a soldier, you get, the trait is military rank. I'm Colonel Clayton.
That's kind of cool, I guess. So it's a way to really kind of force you to really play a character a specific way too.
Right. I mean, if you're an artisan, you're gonna be like, I wanna make everybody a placard.
Look, guys, it's our sigil. It's what we are.
Aww, on a placard.
It means chastity.
That'll be 3 gold.
Just give him the gold. I don't want to hear him fucking whine again.
Okay, so let's see. So you've got your basic equipment. You got your abilities. You've got your class. You've got your background. Now we go into feats. What a feat is basically something that you can do that not everybody can do. In this system, the entire feat aspect of this D&D Next is completely optional. Feats are completely optional in this.
All right, that makes little sense just hearing that. So, okay, explain.
They give you, descriptions of the feats, like Arcane Archer, where you can, put spells into you can cast spells on your arrows, and then when you shoot them, then they, have the desired spell effect. Or, you're better at fighting with 2 weapons than most people. Or you're an athlete, which means your strength goes up by 1, and you gain proficiency in strength skills and dex skills. But the entire feat system is completely optional and up to the DM.
Oh, okay, so it's either all or nothing. Okay,
right.
okay.
Either you're allowing the characters to use feats and have them or not.
What's the benefit of not having them? Does it really say?
I don't really see what the benefit would be to not having them.
Because that really seems like you're really stuck in a cookie cutter kind of environment.
Exactly.
You're at a disadvantage. It's like, but we're on level grounds. It's like, yeah, but I said you guys couldn't have feats, but the NPCs do.
They got tons.
I'm just gonna.
They're gonna cast fireball from their eyes.
I can't do that. I'm just gonna say this right now. This DM's a dick.
What's that? Nothing. Okay. Let's see. So we got feats. So now we move on to equipment. Armor.
Equipment's optional. It's a nudist game.
Yeah. It's completely optional. especially the druid. It's completely optional. Just run around stark naked. I'm not gonna hit you if you're stark naked. I'm just gonna be like, what's wrong with?
Only with a ranged weapon. I got your ranged weapon right here, baby.
Oh, that's what she said.
Do people really play this game? These guys are weird. Listen, guys.
I'm gonna hop his leg.
Listen, guys. Play this for your girls. This podcast for your girls, and guarantee you they probably won't have sex with you ever again or play D&D.
No, definitely not both. I think your best case scenario, you're gonna get one or the other.
Yeah, the sympathy one.
All right. I'm not wearing the ears this time.
All right. So equipment. What do we got on equipment?
For armor. Okay. Now, as a character, you have what they call an armor class, and what your armor class is determines how hard it is to hit you.
And that's usually shortened to AC at times.
Yeah. So your AC is determined by your dex in Pathfinder. Your AC is determined by, you start out with a base of 10 plus your dexterity modifier plus a bonus that armor gives you, plus any miscellaneous things. Let's say you're wearing, a magic ring or whatever, and then that gives you your final result. Let's say your AC is 15. That means if I have a monster that wants to attack you, I need to roll the die and add whatever numbers I add, and it needs to get to at least 15. If it gets to 15, I've hit you. If not, then you've gone, I miss. Now, the way armor and AC is set in this system, your armor class is determined by armor that you wear. Each armor has its own armor class.
Oh, okay.
So let's say you're wearing padded armor. Your AC is 11 plus your dex modifier. Now, there's 3 categories of armor. There's light armor, medium armor, and heavy armor. If you're using light armor, you can use your full dex bonus.
Okay.
If you're wearing medium armor, you can use your dex bonus up to 2. So if your dex bonus, if the modifier is a 4, you can only use 2. If you're wearing heavy armor, you don't get to use the dex at all. So if you're wearing plate mail, your AC is 18.
But you don't get to add your dex.
Right.
Okay.
It's just 18. So that's how armor goes.
That's kind of interesting. Kind of give you a little bit of a tactical, like, okay, so I can go to plate mail and get 18, or if I wear this one plus my dex, I can get more or less or whatever.
Right. So, weapons are pretty well, what they always are. Hammers hit, swords hit, do so much damage, depending on how big they are. Depending on how you're using them, one-handed, two-handed, whatever. You've got all your regular equipment, your living expenses, magic items. Now we're on to magic items. Magic items are from what I'm noticing, magic items are way more rare than you would see in other systems.
Okay, I can kind of buy that.
Like, and I mean, I would say that in general they're more powerful, but I always call it the Christmas tree effect. You have really high level characters, and they're just all decked out in all magic armor, magic ring, magic helmet,
magic weapon.
So yeah, swords, boots, cloak, belt, hats.
Where'd you get it? At the dollar shop just down the street.
I think I saw someone that had a pair of magic eye goggles at one point.
That's awesome.
But like I said, I call it the Christmas tree effect because you have your basic character and you just put all this stuff on it, like a Christmas tree. In this, magic items are a lot more rare. Like +1 armor is. I don't see you. They say usually by 6th or 7th level, maybe even 8th. At that point, you should probably have roughly like a +1 weapon.
Just by rule of thumb, like in old systems?
Yeah.
And then what about this new system?
No, in this system.
Okay. Because usually it's like by 3rd or 4th level in the old system, it seems like everybody was starting to get +1s, right?
Right,
okay.
Right. Let's see. A +1 weapon is considered an uncommon magic weapon. So yeah, so you got your magic items. Magic items, they're rare and whatever. Skip past that, and you go on to spells. One thing that I really liked on this is you have basically, depending on what spellcaster you are, you get spells per day. You can cast, and the spells are broken up into levels, so you can cast so many first level per day, so many second level per day, and that depends on your character level. One thing that I thought was interesting in here is that you can actually cast a spell as a ritual.
Okay.
Ritual spellcasting takes a lot longer, but it doesn't use a spell slot.
Okay. So
let's say you want to cast Bull Strength on somebody, then you can you can do it quick and it's done, or you can do it and then have it take a while, but it doesn't use a spell slot.
So what's take a while? Is that like 2 rounds, 3 rounds?
No.
Minutes?
No. Yeah, about a minute.
Okay. So that's one of those things that, like, that stuff that actually kind of makes that character, like, sorcerer characters more beneficial then, because...
Right, because if you're going somewhere that's going to have, if you're going to walk into a room and there's going to be crap going on, you could, and you're going to have, and if you have time, you can do this stuff and still walk into battle, good to go.
I wonder, though, you kind of can take advantage of that with, like, healing stuff, which is good and bad. So instead of Be like, well, so you get done with the battle, like you're at a spot where you're at a resting point. Usually it takes, a little time for you to get healed up. So instead of having to say, well, we need to rest for the whole night, you can just say, okay, well, we're just going to sit here for 2 hours, beef back up, and then go ahead and start.
Well, there's other things with healing and stuff in here too.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. That all seemed extremely boring to me. I don't care about healing. Care about, doing damage and killing shit.
It's like we're back to full health, right? Yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Let's move on. Now begins the killing, followed by a light salad.
You mean pizza? Yeah, we're going to get pizza. Jesus.
Yeah, we get pizza. Not Long Johns. I can't.
That's kind of my gaming thing is getting Long Johns. I love it.
Mine's Taco Bell. Taco Bell, I would say. I will go. Actually, Mexican in general, now that I think about it. I'll do that one more than anything else.
South of the border kind of fuels your fire for playing.
Yeah. Then I go home and go south of the border.
On myself. Boom.
Yeah, so I'm saying is I masturbate.
So you are a paladin who is not chastising himself.
Right. I'm chastising myself because I usually cry when I do it. Why won't anyone love me? What about me, baby? You don't count.
So what do you...
I just made myself sad.
I'm going to go play D&D now.
Oh.
So reading over the things, there's a couple things that, like, I like the dice thing. I think that's kind of cool, the advantage, disadvantage. Picking out the was it the path where you could pick and get some extra traits on and equipment?
The background.
The background, that's kind of cool. And then what was the other one that seemed kind of neat?
I mean, the background seemed like it's something you could definitely expand on. I mean, they gave you a list of backgrounds to choose from, but it seemed like something you could really kind of flesh it out and I'm doing this background, so I think I should have this as a trait, and I think I should have these as skills.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like something you could kind of go off the beaten path with, and it shouldn't affect things terribly.
Does it look like there's any customization in there that you could kind of make up your own background and kind of tweak it enough that it would work?
Yeah, that's what I think. That's what I think. That's what I would do, and I'd be okay with people doing that if I was running a game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, overall, I mean, it's definitely better than 4th edition. I don't think it's enough for me to make the leap yet. Now, I will say, like I started this off in the beginning, it may not be that all of these rules actually make it into the book.
Gotcha.
Some of the stuff might be left out, but I mean, from what I'm reading on things like Reddit and stuff like that, it looks like it's all pretty well the same.
So you think if it just as is, or do you think anything they could do would make you want to take the leap from Pathfinder over?
Honestly, to me, it would depend on the monsters. It would depend on if I saw a couple published adventures where they actually kind of where I could see this stuff kind of implemented.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I might go that way.
Yeah, I always thought that was really interesting because, I mean, I really only came on at 3.5 and then Pathfinder. But like you just said, like the adventures, or they came out with some adventures that were really good. I wonder if even those you can still kind of, so let's say they have just the greatest storyline adventure ever that you look at and you're like, man, I just want to run this campaign. But it's like,
right.
Your whole group's like, well, we're not going to leave Pathfinder just to play a campaign. Couldn't you could still take that and get it converted over enough that you could still run it, right?
I think so. I mean, I'm sure it would probably take a little bit of finagling, but I don't think it would be that hard to convert.
Yeah.
To convert, Pathfinder to this or vice versa. I will say that from what I understand with this edition, they're Forgotten Realms is pretty much where they're going to be setting a lot of, adventure settings and stuff like that. It's going to be mainly Forgotten Realms.
Gotcha.
But I did hear that they might possibly go to Ravenloft.
Okay.
Which would be awesome.
Yeah, I remember you guys talking about that.
That was awesome. Ravenloft was basically like a gothic setting. So it was a world where, you had creatures like vampires and werewolves and mummies and Frankenstein's monster and stuff like that. And they were usually the ones that were in control. So it was a world run by the bad guys.
And that was the place.
And you can't beat that.
That was the place too. You talked about like if you did something bad, something happened to your character, like your eyes would start glowing, or you'd grow a hook, or.
Yes. There was a chance if you were exceptionally evil, there was a chance that the masters behind Ravenloft would actually alter you in some way, shape, or form. Glowing eyes or clawed hands or cloven feet or whatever.
I always thought that was so cool because it's one of those scenarios where it's like you just gain like +2 strength. You're like, fucking sweet. And it's like, but you look like a rock monster.
Aww.
Oh well. So in Ravenloft you're okay, but if you guys ever
good thing I took that vow of chastity.
That's got to be a paladin's worst nightmare to be in Ravenloft.
Yeah, it's got to be. Because, actually it is. Because, they're like, I want to detect evil. And then you're just like, okay, well, now you have a headache.
Your nose is bleeding, and you wake up 3 days later.
What's the D&D version of a stroke? That's what you have. That's what you have.
So, overall, you're reading on it, so you give it a plus minus. You think it's kind of even with Pathfinder?
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, I would probably call this a 3, and I would probably call Pathfinder like a 4.5.
Okay. And so like
third edition, I would probably call it a. I called it 3.5. Here all night, folks.
Cool. Well, yeah, I'm kind of excited to check it out. I know that's the other thing that's always really interesting because like when 4 came out, everybody was kind of like, I'm not really going to spend the a couple $100 what it costs to upgrade. Because you look at some of their bookshelves and it's like, look, I already have this many 3.5s and there's just all this money you already have invested, and it still works fine. So why not just keep playing what you're playing?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why they really need to do this well, because they lost a lot of people, and I think they need to. I think that's why. They play tested this system for like a year and a half.
Oh wow!
So I think they're really gunning for trying to get their people back. To the brand?
What can they do to get them back though? Because like everybody's pretty solid on Pathfinder, which was really 3.5, but just kind of cleaned up a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to make people be like, I'm going to drop everything I've already invested in Pathfinder or 3.5, and I'm going to go into 5? Like, what's it going to take?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm not saying that because it's set in stone for me. I just don't know.
I always just kind of works. It's one of those things like you look at like operating systems or things like that where they upgrade. If there's not like a big improvement, there's not really a reason to jump into it. So you might as well just stick with what you have that works and not spend the money on something that isn't really giving you that much more.
Right. Like I said, I think it would probably come down to the adventures. If the adventures are really, really, really cool, or if I can think of something really cool, then
I feel like that's where kind of Payzone Pathfinder has it because they're real open to that third-party stuff. And
they have tons.
Yeah.
They just have tons of content.
Well, they've got their, what's it called? Well, they basically come out with like a 20-level run, and those books come out like once a month.
Yeah, something like that.
So like each year they're coming out with 2 full campaigns that you can run. And upon all the other little just single level quests that they have, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. Was there anything else you want to add on that?
No, not really. I mean, it is what it is, and I threw in my 2 cents on it, and I mean, they're trying, and like at this point, like I'm like, I mean, I appreciate the effort, and I'm willing to look at it. I'm willing to not throw it out completely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So I mean, listeners know this isn't a typical jokey, fun Language of Bromance, but hopefully, if you're not a D&D fan, you've at least
it's hardcore nerd bromance.
Hopefully, you learned a little bit.
Language of Nerdmance.
I can't make a nerd voice. I'm too manly for a nerd voice.
Hey guys. that's the best.
That's pretty good. So just a little housekeeping. We have a website now, a full website. It's languageofbromance.com. We're going to be tweaking it and getting kind of how we want it, but you can get all your nerd content, or you're not nerd. See, I'm infected. I'm infected by the nerdness. You can get all your bromance content there.
Them guts.
You can hit us up at Twitter. It's at Language of Bro. I just want to thank all of the followers we have now. Hit us up with anything, any kind of questions, comments, whatever. And then you can contact us by email again.
Quements. Yeah. Questions and comments. Quements. Or comptions.
And then email is languageofbromance@gmail.com. Rich has got it set up. Like us on Facebook. And again, just any kind of comments, anything helps. And just
we love feedback, even if you hate it.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't know, I mean, if you're turning us off, tell us what we can do to turn you on.
Yeah.
If it's not D&D that gets you going, what gets you hot? Is it shark talk? We'll talk sharks. We can do it. We're gonna get like we want you guys to make out. It's like we're in different places. We can't. Otherwise, maybe.
How much you got riding on it? Only for money.
That's right.
That doesn't make it dirty, right?
I don't think so. All right. Well, that's all the bromance we have left for this show. This is Shawn.
And this is Richard.
And I say we eat the beaver.
For money.